Hey guys, we have talked about the best of 2024, and now it's time to talk about the not so greatest of 2024. Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to The Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. So, we did a video about our top 10 books of 2024. It is now time to talk about the ones that I feel bad saying they were the worst, but they were the not so fun reads. And honestly, this year, they were pretty much all DNFs. I think there's 2 or 3 on here that I actually finished. Most of them I got like maybe halfway. I got at least like 100 pages in. There's a few that I didn't even make it that far, and they just got to me. And I think mostly all of them were e-reads for me, except for like one book. Not going to spend a lot of time on them because some of them I didn't read that much into, and I've covered them in other videos. So we're just going to do, once again, just kind of our main little points about why we didn't jive with them. Not saying that other people couldn't love them. I'm hoping other people loved them, because I do feel for authors, because it's hard to write a book. So just because I did not find them the greatest this year does not mean that they ended up in somebody else's top 10. Let's hope. So let's go ahead and get started. So first up was Playboy Pilot by Penelope Ward and V. Keelan. This was probably one of the first, I think it was the first Cocky Hero book club that I DNF'd. I got maybe 20 pages into this book and I was completely turned off of it. The main female character was every sort of annoying. The guy was just giving me all kinds of ick. I didn't want any happy ending for these people. I didn't care about their romance. I didn't care about them. I was so just opposite of them that I was just like, And I had gone on to actually read some of the thoughts and ratings of other people on Goodreads, which, if you follow me, I don't really like doing that unless I really am contemplating continuing a book. And for a lot of people, there were a lot of people that loved it. There were also a lot of people that didn't love it, and the reasonings they gave were really on line with how I was feeling with it. So I just put it down. I don't feel bad about putting it down because the main characters just really, really agitated me. So that was a DNF. Did not pick it up. So next up was a book that I did finish. And part of me wonders if this was because I did this as an audiobook. And I'm not a huge, I love fantasy audiobooks or adventure audiobooks or things like that. Steamy romance might not be for me, and that's just because the voices tend to not match with the voices in that I create for the characters in my head as I read the book. The timing of how they deliver certain lines is not how, when I read it, it would play in my head. It just sounds a little weird. I don't always get to do a lot of audiobooks because I have the kids around and I'm not going to be listening to a steamy romance, although that would be hysterical. But I don't normally do that. I tend to, focus on the things that I got to get done. So I used to do a lot of audiobooks when I would drive around a lot. I don't do that as much. So I don't really have the need for something in the car to really kind of zone out to and listen to. So I prefer reading the actual book, whether it be ebook or physical book. But I did do The Librarian and the Janitor by Victoria Silk. This was an audiobook that I think I got for free in some sort of, I don't want to say like fill your Kindle type day, but something similar to that. It was like a little novella, a little short piece. To me, it was comical, just the lines that were being used, the timing of it. I had to speed this book up because the narration was very slow for me. And I had to speed it up quite a bit to get it to where it sounded like regular dialogue in my head. It was quirky. You had the librarian and the really, really hot janitor who, has his goals, and it was very cliched. Made me laugh. very steamy. Some of the stuff they get up to, it is in the library, so you know that is its thing. But it's just, I could have taken it, I could have left it. It really didn't do much for me. I ended up giving it 2 stars just because I found myself laughing more at the steamy moments, and not because I was listening to them in the car, but just because it's just, let's just say if a guy in real life tried to pull these lines and say certain things, and if she said, it's just, you would be like either laughing hysterically or be feeling very uncomfortable. Let's just say that. And I am so sorry. I totally just kicked the camera there. So I apologize for the wiggle wave that just happened. But yeah, so that was a 2-star for me. I just was not one of my best reads. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't like, it just wasn't great. So next up was another book that I did finish, and it was a 2-star, and that was The Leprechaun's Mate by Elliot Asen, or Asen, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. This was cute, and I gave it 2 stars because I feel like in reading it, I really didn't get a sense of how the story was going to go. It was a novella, I want to say it was like 100 pages or less. Really, really short. Had a lot of potential to work with. You had a man who was basically a leprechaun, and he's living in, of course, Ireland, and he's working with his father in the shop. He's taking care of his father, and a girl happens along. I believe she is traveling from America, and he sees her as his mate. And it's kind of just, for me, the quickness with which the mate bond was established and made known to her. And I know that this is a novella, so you do kind of have to do things really rapidly, but I would have loved this to just have been a regular novel and allowed it to build for it. I felt like there was a lot of things that could have been taken and made into a regular sized book, and it would have developed so good because there was a little bit of basis there for it, and the fact that you don't really see a lot of like leprechaun romances, right? It had potential, and I just felt because of the size of it and everything being so pushed together so quickly, it just kind of dropped the ball on that for me. And then because it had to be pushed together so quickly, her acceptance of everything that was going on, like, oh yeah, wow, okay, it just didn't feel as believable because it was done so quickly. So I think that really, really kind of had me just not really caring for it, but it had a lot of potential. So that one, like I said, I gave 2 stars. Next up, we are just going to have the run-in with, I think almost a lot of these are all DNFs, so just, sit down, stay prepared. First up, we have Shouldn't Have Come by Sloane Sable. This one I got maybe 50 pages in, and no. It was a darker romance. You had a girl who, I guess they were trying to do, I don't know if it's like a made-for-TV special about a haunted house and a summoning, and she's kind of the witch in question brought to do the summoning, and it goes massively wrong. And it is a horror romance as well, so there is blood and guts and gore and all those things. This was one of those ones where when romance happens, this is like situational awareness and time and place. Like, is this really like, and I get that it's a horror romance, so it's going to have a little bit more of these kind of things, but it was just a turn off for me, and I was just not liking it, and it just wasn't making sense. And that really had to deal with like the situation that was going on, and just how quick this woman just seemed to be like, yeah, okay, sure. It was just weird for me. Like I said, it could be great for somebody else. It just was not jiving with me at all. So I ended up DNFing that one. Another one, which was another audiobook. This one I ended up DNFing, and this was The Woven Mark by Megan Linsky. This one, it was one of those ones, maybe in a book format, it might have done a little bit better. The male who did the voice for the main male character, I have nothing against him. He had a great voice. It was just not the voice that I would have pictured for this character. It was just the way the character was described, I felt would have had an older voice. than the voice that happened on the audiobook. And it was just very kind of bringing me out of the book when I would hear his voice, because it didn't match to me who this character was. The other things that I didn't really like is you had this girl who was supposed to kind of be like, she says she doesn't do good in school. She's kind of like naive, kind of ditzy, you know, whatever it is. But then out of nowhere, she'd pull these like books, these words that you could only find in like an SAT prep guide type thing. And they would just come out of nowhere. And then she would focus, it was just randomness and weirdness with the way that would happen. And it would just jar you a little, because you'd be like, wait, that doesn't make sense for your character. So I ended up DNFing it just because I kept from little things that weren't matching up with the way the story was being presented and the characters were being described. There were things that were going on that didn't fit with the characters, that didn't, her voice was fine. So I can't say anything there, but it just, there were little things that just, it felt mismatched in a few different ways, and it just kept pulling me out of the story. And if I keep getting pulled out of the story, I'm not really going to want to keep finishing it, because it's just not, I'm not in the story anymore. I'm not in it. I'm questioning more things about the book than enjoying reading it. So that was kind of why I DNF'd that one. If, I don't know, maybe down the road, maybe it'll be one of those try again prompts, and I'll actually pick up the physical book instead, and maybe I jive better with that one. But for now, it is a DNF. Next up is a book I might get a little hate for, and I am sorry, please do not at me. This was The Claw and the Crown. I DNF'd this one about, I want to say 200 pages in. Like, I tried on this one. And it was decent for what was kind of going on, but it was just really slow going. I was needing some more. It was just taking forever to get through. And when the steam and the spice started happening between the characters, just kind of what happened afterwards, I was expecting at that point it to be a little bit more of a turning point for them, and it didn't seem to be. I expected more growth at this point, like 200 pages in, I expected more growth at this point from the female main character. And it just kind of felt like that wasn't happening. It felt like everything she had been believing in and arguing in and everything up to this point, she's like, oh, well, now I kind of got a guy I might not want to. It just flipped for me, and I just wasn't liking it. I wasn't a huge fan of the main female character. I felt like she was a little bit wishy-washy. The main male character, I didn't really care for him either, just in the sense that he had very, very few redeeming qualities for somebody who is kind of like that bad boy rebel type of character. Usually they have a little bit more to bring you into them. He didn't. He just felt a little like, yeah. And just the stubbornness between the two of them, and I felt a lot of stubbornness from him for like an unwillingness to kind of understand her. So it's like when that starts happening, the romance isn't really driving for me. And then, like I said, once they got to a certain point, I expected it to change, and it wasn't really changing. So I was like, no, I don't want to read, because it was a chunky book, and I was like, I think 200 pages was like the halfway point, and I was just like, I don't really want to do another 200 pages of this. So I know that this one has made one of the more favorite reads for other booktubers. So I'm glad that it's getting a fandom of its own, or a fan base, I should say, because then I don't feel as bad if it didn't work for me, but obviously it's working for somebody else. So there was that. Next up was another novella, and that was Sin on a Dark Night by Rhiannon Fuchs, I want to say is the name. Once again, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. This one for me, you had a woman who, it had potential where it was starting out, where you had a woman who was trying to get herself out of some dire situations. She has been abused in a variety of different ways, and she needs to run, and she needs her freedom. And just through a series of circumstances, she's ending up now in a home of a vampire. And I thought, okay, she's going to fight back. She's going to be strong now because she has this chance at freedom. She lost me in a few chapters of waking up in the extravagance of what a vampire home is and thinking, maybe I'll just give myself to this vampire and then I can live a life of luxury. Nah. And she's just like, I could get used to this luxury, like all about it for the money. And I was just like, yeah, no. And then when you know the trauma and the drama that this girl had been through, when she wakes up at this vampire's home and she's looking at the moon, she said, like, you know, I blew a kiss at the moon because I know the moon always had my back. And I was just like, was this before or after the many events of trauma and abuse and things you've gone through? At which point was the moon at your back? Because forgive me, I'm like, it made me kind of laugh because I was like, yeah, no. And then once she kind of sets about, like, maybe I can seduce him into like turning me and then I can make money. It was really about the money and the extravagance and the lavishness and the spoiledness that she wanted to be, that she just starts doing these really kind of off-putting forms of seduction on this guy that I was just like, I can't take you seriously for anything now, and you have just set me completely off on this side and I don't care anymore. So I ended up DNFing that one, and like I said, it was just like, if I fall out of love with a character, if I'm not emotionally pulled in and there's no growth and there's no plot line really coming on, it's going to take a lot for me to continue. So I ended up DNFing that one. Next one I know has a huge fan base again, and I might get some hate for this one, but I ended up DNFing 50 Shades of Grey by E.L. James. I think I got close to 100 pages in on this one. It was another early DNF, and it was just the things that the main male character was doing were just so stalkerish and controlling and I didn't like him. And she's so naive that I'm like, okay. And then their first time together made absolutely no sense in the realm of reality for the way things go down, that I was just like, yeah, that's not romantic. And then when he hands her the contract, I was like, this girl literally will have no freedom. And I'm like, nowhere in the common sense realm that is my mind would any girl ever sign a contract like this. I mean, yeah, she gets all these lavishness. Yeah, she gets, you gotta have a personal trainer. He decides how you groom yourself, how you cut your hair, how you shave, how you do whatever. He decides when and what you will eat. It was just every little aspect. And I'm like, no, I couldn't. And knowing that she was going to sign it and knowing that, this becomes a book, I was like, I can't, because nowhere in my mind would I ever have signed something like that. Nowhere would I have allowed like this guy to be completely as controlling as he is. But now that I have DNF'd the book, I can probably go and watch the movies, because I didn't want to watch the movies until I had read the book. But I will give the movies a chance. Let me know if you've seen the movies and read the books. Like, do they follow pretty similarly, or is like the movie like its own thing? And if in your mind, which was better, was the book better or the movie better? Although if the book was better for you, I'm sorry I DNF'd it. But yeah, it wasn't my thing. The romance, that was it. It just was not for me. So yeah, I DNF'd that one. So next up is probably the only physical book that I have on my list, was another DNF, and that was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I really wanted to like this. I knew there was mixed reviews on this book, and I was curious to see where I fell. But because it was supposed to be like kind of a Southern vampire, a book club, like these older women, I was expecting to have some humor to it, some funness to it, and just have a fun time with the novel. I wasn't expecting much. Realistically, it was hitting me more as a bunch of women who were towards middle age, who were living the life of middle-aged, housewives, moms, dealing with, husbands that, weren't always in the greatest of relationships for them, while reading these true crime and fictional, horror stories and like discussing them. And there were some very gross, graphic scenes involving just kind of some stomach churning things. Like, don't be reading this and eating at the same time is probably my best thing. That wasn't completely off-putting. It just, once I was close to 200 pages into this book, I believe, and I just felt like nothing was really happening. Like, even the guy that you're suspecting of, oh, is he a vampire? Something's wrong with him or whatever. I was just kind of like, eh. And then, so this was one of the ones that I went to the reviews and wanted to see what people were feeling about it. And when I found out that it's like, yeah, no, there's not really paranormal in here. It's just the suspense or the thought of paranormal. And I was like, well, that was my whole thing. And even in the intro that's written by the author, when he says, I wanted to see who would win, Dracula or a mom, and I was like, yes, let's go team mom, because I was really wanting to see that matchup too. I would love to see like some stay-at-home housewife mom taking on like a big strong vampire, like, and like not my kids type of situation. But that was just not what was going on. And so for me at that point, it was just so slow that I was just like, I can't anymore. And so I ended up DNFing it and went that way. So now I know which part of which side I fall on that book, because like I said, there was a lot of mixed reviews on it, but now I know. And for the last book on my worst 10 is the first volume of Black Summoner. I want to say it's Dofu Mayoi. I don't know if that's the illustrator or the actual, concept creator. This one I did finish, but I gave it like 1 star. It was just everything cliched about waking up in a magical world where you don't really have the most seemingly strong of skills. You have what seems very useless but ends up making you completely powerful, which is not a bad thing. There's a lot of shows, when I've reviewed this book, there's a lot of shows and animes that I've watched that I love that have that kind of concept. This one just felt very much every bit cliched. The dialogue was not that great. The characters were kind of annoying. They did the cliched, oh, I'm going to go buy myself that really beautiful looking elf and make her my it was just very much cliched, and I just couldn't wait to be done with the first volume. And when it's a manga, that kind of says something, because usually those are not very taking up too much time to read those. But yeah, I ended up 1-starring that one because it was just not my cup of tea for that genre. Like I said, there are a lot of other ones that they get reincarnated or summoned to a new world, and they, get the short end of the stick and make it work for them. And there's lots out there that are fantastic. This one sadly just wasn't one for me. But like I said, so these are kind of the 10, I don't want to say worst, because most of them were just DNFs for me. So I couldn't, I never fully finished them, but I should just call the video the DNFs of 2024. But there are a few on there that I did end up finishing, and they just fell a little short for me. But like I said, hopefully they are somebody else's favorite so that they get some love and care that they deserve, because writing is hard. But yeah, the best and the worst are now out there for your perusal. If you disagree with any of these, feel free. Let me know in the comments below. Was there a turning point for you where they just became everything? If you thought similarly to me and you DNF some of these, or they were not your cup of tea, also let me know in the comments below. No judgment either way. Everybody has their own taste. We all like what we like. No shame. But yeah, let me know. And like I said, if you want, throw out what was one of your worst reads or a book that heavily annoyed you from 2024 in the comments below. Or send me, look me up on Instagram, send it to me there, however you want to do it. I would be interested in finding out. But other than that, we move on to a new year, new best books, new worst books. Hopefully your best books will outweigh your worst books in this new year ahead. But all that, take care, stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.